Welcome to another episode of Overcome Out Loud. You know, this podcast has been created and is dedicated to helping people overcome adversity and give them hope. So many people suffer in silence. It has been my mission to share the story of others that have overcome and to bring you subject matter experts, you know, in the field of psychology, mental performance, mental conditioning, in areas that can help you overcome any adversity that you're facing in your life. And today I'm really excited actually to be sitting down in person with, for lack of a better definition or description, he is a friend. He's a very big mentor of mine. Anybody who's seen the changes that have been going on in my life over the course of the last year, there's a few people that I credit with helping me achieve those, and one of them is here today, and it's Brian Cain.
Charlie, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here to talk about overcoming out loud.
Yeah, it's so great to have you. Brian is the founder of Mental Performance Mastery. He's got a coach certification course. He's got a course for athletes. He has been an expert in the field of mental performance for over 20 years. His resume includes several Cy Young Award-winning pitchers, several UFC champion fighters, teams, literally baseball, softball, lacrosse. I mean, you name the sport, you name the school all over this country, they've had access to, and he's worked with so many championship teams and really helping people find their way through adversity in their lives or in their sport through mental performance. And Brian, I mean, give people a little insight into kind of how this field came about for you, how this profession came about for you, and where it all started for you. Because I know you grew up back in Vermont and were an athlete growing up and played in college and found some struggles that you had to overcome. And just share with us a little about your entry into mental performance.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, northwest corner of a town called Williamstown, home of Williams College. And was a three-sport athlete in high school. I was a 6'1" center on the basketball team, so you know we weren't very good. Small school, was a quarterback on the football team, played every position in baseball, and got a scholarship to go to the University of Vermont. And when you come out of a small town like that in Massachusetts, it's kind of like being the best snowboarder in Mexico. Right? You think you're good, but compared to what, right? Compared to what other population? So I go to Division I college baseball, and I'm at the University of Vermont. I'm on a good-sized scholarship. I got a lot of expectations, and I can't get anybody out. And for the first time in my baseball career, really, I'm struggling. And I got nothing to go to, right? And for my whole life, and even to this day, when things aren't going my way, it's just grit your teeth, put your head down, go harder, go faster. It's why I love golf, because that mentality of grit your teeth, put your head down, go harder, go faster works in a lot of areas, not in golf. And it didn't work in baseball. So I was essentially going mentally crazy, because it's like every tool I've ever used in my career, in my life to be successful is not helping me at this point. And I don't know what to do.
You know, I think that there's a very important lesson there, and I don't think it's uncommon. You know, I think that's a normal course for a lot of high school athletes. I mean, in high school, when you're developing your aptitude, your attitude towards the sport, most of the kids that I know that have excelled in high school, they have a above average aptitude for the sport. So they happen to have a God-given gift, and they have a above average interest in the skill. So more than the average athlete, they really love their sport of choice. They work hard at it. They might have a position coach. They might have a skill coach. Their parents might be getting them some outside help besides just their high school coach. They're a 3-year starter. They're a captain for 2 years on varsity. They get all Marmonti, all county, all league recognition. They're getting lots of pats on the back, interviews after the game, and they've kind of not experienced a lot of setbacks. They haven't experienced a lot of adversity. They haven't experienced a lot of self-doubt. But you make that jump from high school to college, and all of a sudden, you know, we talked a little bit about this last night, the playing field gets elevated, the pressure gets elevated, the level of competition gets elevated, and now you're one of many.
Yeah, you go from being what I call the uncommon to the common, right? So if you're playing varsity athletics in high school, you're uncommon in your school. And if you're the best player in your county, the best player in Western Massachusetts, you're an all-state player, you're the best in your state. So you become uncommon for your state. But then you go to Division I college baseball, and everybody was all-state. Everybody was their captain. Everybody was the best player on their team. So now you become common. And every time you make a jump from Division I to pro baseball to AA to AAA, Major Leagues, you continue to become common again. And you have to kind of retool and rework and identify your process and sharpen your process to continue to become the uncommon of the common. And at some point, you kind of meet what I call your breaking point, meaning your skill set and the knowledge that you have and the tools that you have to handle the adversity is just below or below the level of adversity that you're at. And for me, that was when I got to Division I college baseball, is that everybody could hit. And in high school, if I give up a hit or two, I could just overpower the other guys. But you get to college baseball and I couldn't do that. And I had nothing to go to handle the adversity. So I ended up, running like 8 to 10 miles a day before practice because I thought you had to pitch with your legs, which is the dumbest thing you'll ever hear in your life. And as I start running, you look at baseball, there's 3 types of muscle fibers, right? Not to go all exercise physiology on you, but from a basic standpoint, if you look at a sprinter, that's what we call fast twitch, rocked, muscled, explosive. You look at a cross country runner, that's what we call slow twitch. Not a lot of muscle, can run all day, not going very fast. And then there's fibers called intermediate fibers. And based off of how you train, you become either more fast twitch, explosive, plyometric, or more slow twitch, cardiovascular, long distance. I was training long distance for explosive sport. So the harder I trained and the harder I worked and the more I pushed, the worse I became.
But I think that's the common mentality is if I just work harder, and I'm really taken back, we've shared Tony Gonzalez's interview on Lewis Howes where he says, I was working hard. He led the league in drop passes his second year in the NFL after having a storied career at Berkeley, after being an incredible standout athlete in high school. And here he is, 6'4", 230 pounds, a highly coveted tight end, leading the league in drop passes because he was in his head. He was facing that pressure of that next level of competition. And I think this applies to everything, by the way. I think this applies to becoming a parent. I think it applies to getting a new job. I think it applies to, competing with your friends, in a sport. I mean, as pressure goes up, working harder only gets you so far. And that's what he said. He goes, I was working hard in practice, but I wasn't doing anything before and I wasn't doing anything after. And I was in my head. And I don't think, I think, a lot of people feel that way, but they don't know how to get out of their head. And so, you were experiencing that, in Vermont and had nowhere to go. And so you were in your head.
Well, I was working hard, not smart. I was working hard at the wrong things. And, I met a mentor. I picked up a book, Heads Up Baseball, which we'll get into, and met a mentor, Ken Revisa. And he started to say things in his book, Heads Up Baseball, that I had never heard before. He said, you have to work smarter, not harder. I said, well, I'm working harder than anybody else, and that ain't working. So let me try working smarter. And what it should say is work harder and smarter. It's both. He said, if you're the player who everyone's always told you have to relax, which I heard every day, but no one has told you how to relax, this book is for you. I said, wow, someone's going to teach me how to relax. Like take a deep breath before the pitch. If you watch golfers, you watch baseball, you'll see them all taking a breath before the pitch or before the shot, because the breath is what puts you in control of yourself, and you have to be in control of yourself before you control your performance. And sometimes you can get out of control because it means so much to you that it's life and death. And literally for me, if I did not play professional baseball, I was a failure at life. I had to let it become pervasive in that who I was as a baseball player was impacting me as a student, as a person, as a son, as a brother, as everything. So my whole self-identity, which I've now realized having done a master's in sports psychology, is that's called athlete identity, and a lot of people have it. And athlete identity is your self-worth as a human is based off completely how you perform on the field. And when you have that, it's a slippery slope, because when it's life and death, which it was for me every time I stepped on the mound, you're going to die a lot. And you have to have some tools to be able to have good, bad days. You have to realize that you don't have to feel good to play good. And you're not that bad that everything has to go perfectly for you. Every play has to be made behind you as a pitcher. Every call has to go your way for you to compete. And if you look at really what you can control as a pitcher, you can't control getting guys out. You can't even control throwing strikes. Umpires have to choose to say it's a strike, or the hitter has to swing. You can't control the errorless play behind you. All you can control is where you throw the baseball. And once it leaves your hand, it's in the game's hands. It's in God's hands. There's nothing you can do. And when you break it down to its most simple form of process over outcome, it simplifies the battlefield down to what I can control. And if there was one element of mental performance that I could share with the listeners of the Overcome Out Loud podcast, it would be take everything that you're thinking about right now, write it down on a piece of paper, the things that are stressing you out, the things that you're carrying. Write it all down. Cross off the things you can't control and go to work on the things that are still left because you can control them. And if you can control them, you can influence them. And if you can influence them, that's how you're going to get the outcomes that you're looking for. But to try to control things you can't control is no different than you and me, Charlie, sitting here in your office, looking outside at the blue sky and going, I hope that sky turns green. I hope that sky turns purple. Well, it's going to be blue or it's going to be black. Maybe cloudy gray. Right. But I don't know the last time, I guess you could say, I saw a purple sky or a gold sky or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's like saying, I want those clouds right there to just disappear. Clouds disappear. Clouds disappear. They're not going away.
And the idea is the tie-in for me is not just the fact that you couldn't control certain things. It was attaching your worth to the outcome of the things you didn't control. So here I am, and in my own life, it's like, if this happens, I've heard it called destination disease. And I remember Troy Aikman sitting in his hotel room after winning the Super Bowl talking about how he was just so upset. He was crying because he was like, is this like, I thought when I got here, I'd feel different, and I don't feel different. And that's why I think you've always really encouraged us as you've mentored people along the way to understand that the process, it's the happiness is the pursuit. It's the constant pursuit, and the pressure should just be on yourself to do the best you can today. Because if you feel pressure associated with an outcome that you don't control, and then the person who does control it doesn't do what you think they should do, you've now just confirmed to yourself that your identity or your self-worth tied to the outcome is less than it could be if you just said, I got up today, I did what I should have done, I behaved how I should have behaved, I practiced like I wanted to, and whatever happens, happens.
Well, it's the mindset of did I give myself the best chance for success versus did I get the outcome? And you'll hear people say you got to fall in love with the outcome, and I disagree with that, and that you have to fall in love with the process, because the process is determines who you become in pursuit of that outcome. And as they say in the movie Cool Runnings, right? Like, if you're never enough with the gold medal, you'll never be. If you're not enough without the gold medal, you'll never be enough with it. As John Candy, I think the character in the movie, cheats to win the gold medal in bobsledding or whatever it was. And when you can divorce yourself from the outcome, you actually give yourself a better chance to get the outcome that you're looking for. And when you can separate yourself from the outcome, you dramatically increase your chances of getting it. And when you focus on the outcome, you actually sabotage your ability to perform to get the outcome that you're looking for. So it's a way that we're kind of lied to throughout our whole life as kids in school. We say, keep your eyes on the prize. And I always follow that with, and you might trip over what you're doing in the moment.
Yeah, I'm reminded of John Wooden, who was asked, during the game, what his focus was, and his focus was always on the cuts that his players were making. He knew if his players made sharp cuts and came in and out of their cuts fast and were making crisp passes, that they had a chance to win the game. He said, if I spent my whole time looking at the scoreboard, I would have never predicted whether we would win or lose. I could predict whether we were going to lose by how my players were playing. I couldn't. It was important. It's important to have a scoreboard, and I think we can talk a little bit about the importance of having goals, because if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere else. But they're really just that. They're set on the map, but then you got to get in the car. Then you got to turn the car on. You got to make sure you got gas, and you got to know where you're going. And if you just focused on the end, you're going to get in an accident.
Well, just think about a GPS. When you get in your car and you type in a destination, right? We're here in California. Let's say we're going to drive to Scottsdale, Arizona, where I live. We put the GPS in your car. It doesn't show us the entire, it gives us like the snapshot, right? In the beginning, it says, okay, here's where you want to go. Boom, and it zooms out and shows California, shows Arizona. And then once you say go, what does it do? It zooms into the next 200 feet of the road. It says, to go out here, take a left, take a right. And it gives you all the steps within the process, within the journey to get to where you want to go. So when you start the journey, you're no longer looking at Scottsdale, Arizona. You're looking at, how do I get out of this parking lot? How do I get onto the freeway? What direction am I going in? And it gives you the journey that becomes the destination that takes you to, it gives you the journey that takes you to the destination and gives you the best chance to get there.
And so, such a great point. And so along the way, driving gets tedious. Driving, make another left turn, make another right turn. Yeah, I want to get there. Is there a way to get there faster? I mean, I'm kind of bored with the day-to-day. And where does motivation and commitment come into play when you're pursuing that? And sometimes another day of doing those things, seems to not, you just don't feel like doing them.
Well, it's understanding, I think, something I've learned recently is that motivation comes after movement begins. And a lot of people make the mistake to think that they have to feel a certain way to then get started, and it's the opposite. It's get started, and then you'll have a chance to feel a certain way. So motivation comes after movement begins, and recommitting to your commitments every day is something I learned from a world champion in tie-down calf roping, Donnie Taylor. She wrote a book called The Heart of a Champion, one of the best books I've ever read. Phenomenal woman, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal coach. And she said, the biggest thing I learned in pursuit of winning a world championship was the importance of recommitting to your commitments and staying on that commitment long after the feeling has gone. And she said that feelings are not facts. Feelings are going to come and go. But it's your focus that determines where your energy goes, and it's your focus that determines your future. So stay locked in on what it is you want to accomplish, but most importantly, or should I say, and most importantly, the journey of what you're going through to get there. And she also says, be careful of what you pursue, of who you become in that pursuit. And who you become in that pursuit is really what the reward is. Now, if you win a world championship or you win a UFC title, there is obviously financial implications that come with those things. But there's nothing more common than the person who has all the money in the world but is empty in their happiness because of who they've become in pursuit of what they've wanted. So be careful of what you say yes to, because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And the beautiful part about human beings is we can change and we can grow and we can adapt and we can overcome when we make that decision, because it's the decision that determines the destiny of who we become. So you set your course, you make your decisions, you manage your decisions, and you go step by step to get to where you want to go.
Let's talk about adversity, because what you're describing, I think, is who you become on the way there, is how you deal with those setbacks, because we know that the man on top of the mountain doesn't necessarily get dropped off by a helicopter, right? I mean,
correct.
There's a path, and I shared with you this morning and last night as we were out getting some working on the road about some of the setbacks that I had, and while I pursued my career and I achieved certain material successes, I couldn't pass the look in the mirror test, because the way I got there was so incongruent with a set of values that I really believed in. So I got there, quote unquote, but I didn't like how I got there, so I couldn't stay there. And a lot of that has to do with how we deal with adversity. And I think one of the things that you talk about is whether it's adolescents, immature, or unhealthy people, because I wasn't an adolescent, but I sure was unhealthy, but I made a lot of choices based on my preference. And as I made choices based on my preference, what I thought would make me feel good in the day, in the moment, I wasn't making choices based on principles. And how important are principles as a guardrail to overcoming adversity or overcoming setbacks in your life?
I think it's essential, because the principles give you the direction. They become your guiding star, your guiding light. And I'll share a story with a UFC World Champion, Vitor Belfort, who I worked with, towards the end of his career. He's still competing. Actually knocked out Evander Holyfield in a celebrity guest boxing match not so long ago. But I remember sitting in a sauna with Vitor as he's cutting weight, getting ready for his last, I think, crack at a UFC World Championship against Chris Weidman. And I asked him, I said, Vitor, 20 years ago, you were 18 years old and won a UFC title. What would you go back and tell yourself if you could tell yourself now at 38 of the Vitor of 18? And he said, I would tell myself that a boy lives out of preference and a man lives out of principle. And to be a man, you have a set of guiding principles. And those principles determine your behavior. And I think for the listeners to this, when I work a lot with high school, college, young professional, and they're always saying, well, who am I? Well, I don't think who you are is as much a journey as it can become a decision to get started, because it's the start that stops most people. So as you're listening to this right now, and if I were to ask you, what are your core principles for your life? 1 to 3. If you're going, I don't know, beautiful, because this is a moment for you. This is a stop on your journey to ask yourself a difficult question, but a necessary question of who do you want to be? Who are you? And I think let me rephrase that question. Who do you want to be? Who do you need to be to get where you want to go? Because who you are is simply a residual of the past. And the beautiful part about being a human being is who you become. It happens by the choices that you make starting from this movement moving forward. So when I look at a set of core principles, mine is the acronym APPLE, and it's for myself and my wife and our family. We have our first child coming in a few months. And as we revisited our set of core principles, we came up with the acronym APPLE: accountability, process, present, love, and energy. So when I look at those core principles and I say, okay, how am I living today? Am I living accountable? Am I telling the truth? Am I being accountable to what I said I was going to do and who I want to be? Am I focused on a process? Am I coming up with a system that can be repeatable over time, or are we just talking? Are we giving strategies, or are we talking? I'm not into entertainment. I'm into education. The limited free time I have is going to go into those buckets. Is it entertainment? Is it education? And my entertainment bucket is almost zero, because to me, my education is my entertainment. And then I look at the P. Am I focused on being present? Am I where my feet are? Or am I on my phone? Am I distracted? Am I engaged in this conversation or thinking about what I'm doing later on in the day? Be where your feet are. And then when I look at love, am I unconditionally giving of myself, expecting nothing in return? I don't expect any return on this podcast. There's nothing that's going to come my way from doing this podcast other than the self-satisfaction of knowing that hopefully someone listening to this right now is asking themselves, what are my core principles that I need to live my life at the highest level? What's one word that if I chose to live right now as a core principle, it could help me close the gap from where I am to where I want to be and to overcome what I want to overcome? And then the E, energy. Energy is, am I a positive life force for others? Am I building energy every day so I can give that energy away? And building the energy every day, it comes down to what I call the 4 fundamentals of optimal living. How do I eat? Am I eating clean? Am I eating well? How do I move? Am I exercising every day? How do I feed my mindset? And like this morning, I had the privilege of you taking me through your morning routine and the meditation and the prayer and the journaling and the affirmations. And that feeds the mindset. And the last piece is sleep. How am I sleeping? Am I getting enough recovery? Because you can't outwork bad sleep. You can't outwork bad nutrition. You can't outwork bad mindset. And you can't outwork bad movements, right? All those things that you're doing with your EMMS are building your machine to be able to give yourself to other people. And that's ultimately, I think, why we exist, is what are we doing to build ourselves to make the world a better place and help other people along the journey?
Wow. I mean, that's so important. I can tell you, wow, can I tell you? So I was so afraid of deciding who I wanted to be because I was petrified of not being able to become it. I was so afraid of not hitting the mark that I wouldn't sit down and write down who I wanted to become. And I lived in this kind of vortex of unintentional living and, just thinking if I get things, then that's who I want to be. I want to be somebody who gets, I want to have the house. I want to have this. I want to have this. And if I get that, then I'll be, instead of saying, I want to be principled. I'm right now living, I kind of have 12 principles that I try to incorporate into my life. And right now I'm living in the 4 H's. So it's, am I helpful? Am I hopeful? Am I honest? And am I humble? Those are the guiding principles that I'm really trying to focus on. When I got sober in 2008, I decided I would live in a snow globe, which means today I want my kids, my fiance, the people that care about me to be able to look into one of those Christmas snow globes and see what I'm doing at any point and have me think they'll be proud of me. I couldn't do that for a lot of years because I didn't live by principle. And the reason was I was so afraid of falling short of the mark. But really we're goal-serving mechanisms, aren't we? I mean, if we set intentions, it actually increases the likelihood that we'll get there versus this vortex of just kind of driving around in circles. At least that's what I experienced.
Yeah, I think that, as you're talking about the fear of will I get there? And I think what we have to continually come back to is it's the journey that's the reward. It's not the destination. It's not when you get there. I mean, look at Troy Aikman. Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady wins 4 Super Bowls or whatever it was, and he's on 60 Minutes, and he goes, is that all there is? Because once you win the championship of that season, guess what? That season's over, and the next one's coming. So I think when we look at the journey and who we become within the process, we realize that failure is positive feedback. We learn that fear is false evidence appearing real. And we realize that the biggest challenge, it comes back to the movie Coach Carter, right? Where the biggest fear is that I realize I'm going to butcher this, but it's where I realize, that my biggest fear is I never realized that I have limitless potential to do what I want to do. It might take some people more time. Some people might need more training, but you can do anything you want with the right time and the right training. And when we have the fear and we realize, I call it the disease of one eye. When I get this, I will get started. When I get under 200 pounds, I'll start to run again. When I get this promotion, I'll work on my leadership. When I have my first kid, I will be faithful. Whatever it is, the when I. And the disease of one eye needs to be turned into the power of whether I. Whether I get the promotion or not, I'm going to start working on my leadership skills or not. Whether we have a child or not, I'm going to be faithful. Whether I get under 200 pounds or not, I'm going to start my movement right now because I know that's going to help me get to where I want to go and feel better. So trade when I, a destination disease, for whether I, and make the decision to get started now. Because the time is always now, the place is always here, right? When's the best time to plant the tree? Well, Charlie, it would have been 20 years ago. Why? Because the tree would be full grown.
Yeah.
But when's the second best time to plant the tree? Right now. Right now. Today.
And why? Yeah, I know you say this, and I know it's true for myself. But have you pinpointed why the start does stop most people?
Yeah, it's like the rocket ship.
Uh-huh.
When a rocket ship takes off, and I'm going to butcher the numbers here, but just so think, for all of you aeronautical space science people who know the exact number, get off of me here.
They're not
right.
listening. They're not fucking listening.
Yeah, thank you. No, good. Okay, we can open up language here. I love that. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
So the fucking energy that it takes for the rocket ship to take off, it uses about 80% of its fuel in the first 5 minutes. And then the rest of that mission for the next 5 weeks, it uses the last 20% of the fuel. Why? Because to break the gravitational pull that you put on yourself from the bullshit you feed yourself and what everyone else is telling you and holding on to the past, it weighs you down. And until you cut yourself free and you propel yourself to move forward by getting started, it takes all the energy to get started. It's like the locomotive. What happens when the locomotive gets going? It's slow. It's steam. It's loud. And then once it gets going, it doesn't want to stop, man. The locomotive keeps moving, but you have to break inertia.
Wow. And I think, we'll segue into there's so much we can go into, but I want to segue into the bricks that we hold. I mean, how those, our brain keeps score of these past failures, these past mistakes, and it wants to project the past based on its recollection of those kind of Velcro negative attachments that it has to what went wrong. And, you shared a story about a client and a brick and how carrying those is like a weight, and it's really preventing us from lightening our load and doing what we want to do. And how have you used that brick analogy to help people free themselves from past mistakes and use those to propel them forward as you did?
Well, it's funny. I first started with baseball players.
Uh-huh.
And when I see a baseball player like strike out to end an inning and you see them out in the outfield and like they're working on their swing and they got their glove on, I'd call timeout. I'd run out and in practice, setting or inner squad. I'd take the guy's glove and give him a bat. I go, hey, if you're going to work on hitting. Give me your glove. Or if I had a quarterback and I'd see him throw a ball away and then you see he's pissed because he threw the ball away, made a bad pass, I'd run out and I'd say, okay, hold on to this ball with your left hand because you're still holding on to that last pass. And now try to catch the snap. And now you have 2 balls because you're holding on to the last play. And now the play that you have now, and he's trying to play with 2. And then he would make a mistake and I'd give him 3. And I got a quarterback out there holding on to like 5 balls and he's trying to catch the snap. And 2 of the balls were from a possession that was over 20 minutes ago, right? And he's sitting there, and the point is made of you have to free yourself from the mistakes because you're not going to be perfect. Just be present. So where the brick analogy comes in, and the time I've used it that gets probably referenced the most is with a UFC fighter named George St. Pierre.
Right.
And when I met George, we were at a lunch or a breakfast at an Eggs Up Grill in Montreal. He had just lost his UFC title to Matt Serra about 5 weeks before. He got knocked out in the first round as an 11-1 favorite. Matt Serra had won the Ultimate Fighter reality TV show to get the right to step in the ring with George. And George had just beaten Matt Hughes, who was the icon of the middleweight or welterweight division. And he's like, and everyone's saying, oh, you're going to run through this guy. This guy doesn't deserve to be in the cage with you, the whole thing. So George loses the fight because he's not prepared. He's not mentally in the right space he needs to be at. And at that level, if you're in the UFC, you're always 1 punch away from winning a fight. And as we're sitting down at this lunch, I pull this black brick out and I take out a silver Sharpie. I said, George, tell me what all the things you're holding on to from this fight. I let my fans down. People say I'm a paper champion because it's harder to keep the belt than to win it. I left half of my purse in the octagon, biggest upset in UFC history. I'm a failure. Boom, all this stuff. I'm writing it down on the brick. I said, hold this brick for 5 seconds over the table. No problem. So could you hold it for 5 minutes? He holds it for about 2 minutes. I go, okay, you can relax. I go, could you hold it for 5 minutes? Yes. What if I asked you to hold it for 5 weeks? He's like, Brian, there's no way I could hold this for 5 weeks, man. My arm would fall off. I'd have to sleep. He's laughing. And he goes, so I said, George, here's the point. 5 weeks ago, you got knocked out. You underperformed. You lost your first fight you lost your second fight in the UFC. What have you learned? Because when an airplane crashes, we go looking for the black box. When the black box gives us the information of why the plane crashed, what did we learn? Failure is positive feedback. He's like, man, I took this guy lightly, and I can never take any opponent lightly in the UFC because they're all world class. He goes, 3 weeks before the fight, I probably wasn't training as serious as I should have. I thought I could flip the switch because I was just going to be better than this guy, and I learned the hard way that they can't do that. And he's like, so this has been the worst thing for my career. And I said, and it's going to become the best thing for your career because you're going to learn the value of preparation, and separation is in preparation. So I said, take this brick. And what you've been doing for the last 5 weeks is carrying this brick psychologically. You can't see it, but it's wearing you down as if you have a 5-pound brick that you're carrying all the time for 5 weeks. If you threw a vest on, okay, if you want to try this as an analogy, and I used to be 240 pounds, 60 pounds heavier than I am sitting here today. And I had a mentor give me a 40-pound weighted vest. He said, Brian, I want you to walk around in this all day. At the end of the day, when you take it off, you'll notice how much better you feel. I remember taking the vest off and I was like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And he's like, when you take the vest off, call me. And I called him. And he said, see how much better you feel? I said, yeah. He goes, that's how it's going to feel when you go from 240 to 200, get to work.
Wow.
And what the 40-pound vest did for me is it gave me a reference and an awareness of what that difference would feel like. But it's really hard to read the label when you're inside the jar because awareness of change, like you don't see it in yourself. That's why as we're getting that smoothie today over at Mario's place, right? Mario the banker, Mario Banks, right? Professional wrestler Mario Banks. Let's see if I can steal his line today, Charlie. He says, hey, Mario Banks, the best investment you can make. It's a guarantee, not gambling, and you can take that to the bank. I thought that was pretty awesome.
It is great.
He's sitting there making these smoothies, and you look in his shop, right? And there's all these before and after pictures. So when you look at the before and after picture, you go, wow, what a transformation. Well, that transformation that we look at in the picture, the before and after, there is a long time between those two pictures. And when you're in the label, you don't see that transformation happening because you're inside yourself. You don't see it. That's why the photos are so important, to see where you came from to where you are now. Because if you don't have those photos, all you see is now.
Yeah.
And now is always evolving in one way or the other. So having a reference point of where you were to where you are now and making what I call your best, your baseline, like my best level of fitness in 2015, best, if I had trained all of 2015, that's a baseline now. That's what I wake up at every day. And we're constantly trying to do that to become the best version of us, is make my best my baseline.
And we talked about not wishing it was easier, just keeping to work harder.
Yeah.
And changing physical attributes of ourselves takes one set of emotional muscles and support, and getting ourselves fit does. But I think you're pointing out, which is really important, especially for people that are suffering in silence, is that self can't see self. And so when people are overcoming, when they've got this adversity that they're facing, what's the go-to? What's the number one kind of mental performance tool that you're giving people that are stuck, that are feeling the weight of that last brick? How do we help people release the brick? I know we can show them what it likes to carry it, and we can feel like what it's like, but how do we help people actually release that brick?
To me, the first step is the learning. What'd you learn from this? How do you make this adversity your advantage? Because when you ask a better question, you get a better answer. And by asking yourself, how can this be better for me? How can I learn from this? How can this propel me to a level I would have never gotten to had it not happened for me? Because it's never happening to you, it's always happening for you. Then they get a better answer because they ask a better question. And then I start to try to go to strategy. And my friend and mentor, Dr. Rob Gilbert, always says ability plus strategy plus get off your anatomy equals results, right? So A plus S plus GOYA equals R. Ability plus strategy plus get off your anatomy equals results. And what I like to try to do is help people first realize it's possible. And I'll do this, I'll write down the word impossible. And then put an apostrophe between the I and the M and a space between the M and the P. And it's still the same letters as impossible, but now we read it as I'm possible. And how we become more possible is I have a game plan of, okay, where am I? Where do I want to go? What are the strategies that I put into play to get there? Another way to say it is I call it my 4-step goal formula. And step 1 is set your intention. Intention. Here's where I am. There's where I want to go. Here's how I'm going to get there. And I might start with something as simple as make your bed every day and start your day with a win. Show that you're in control. Show you can act different in how you feel. Show you can pay attention to detail. And show that you can follow through on something long after the feeling is left. Start making your bed.
Can you, and I want to go through all 4 steps, but this is, I think people that want to overcome anything in their lives feel like they got to make these big, huge strides. Like I got to get from here and I want it to be like this because I don't like how I feel now. I don't like the situation I'm in now. I just want it to go away. And so sometimes, and I've seen people look for that quick fix, and it's not lasting. They say enthusiasm is common, but commitment is rare. And you can get really excited about how you're going to do it, but then you set these big, audacious objectives about what you're going to do tomorrow. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to start running 10 miles tomorrow. And you might do that for a day, but we start to back off fast. And how important is it to make these, to understand the importance of small, simple steps?
I like to use a reference from the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Yeah.
And he says, would you rather have a check for $3 million or a penny that doubles every day for a month? And when I ask that to audiences, 80% of the people raise their hand on $3 million. They want it quick, they want it fast, they want it now, they want it easy. But if you take a penny and double it every day, it's not until day 29. At day 29, that penny is worth $2.5 million. So it's not till day 30 that penny is worth $5 million and you're ahead. But if it's a 31-day month like it is in October, that penny is now worth $10 million at the end of a 31-day month. They call it the compound effect. And that is the benefit of the small, slow, daily. That's the benefit of do a little, a lot. That's the benefit of eat the elephant one bite at a time. That's the benefit of it's the start that stops most people. That's the benefit of the journey of 1,000 miles starts and begins with a single step, however you want to say it. And that's why the 4-step goal formula 1 is, what is my intention? I want to write a book. Okay, write the first page, write the dedication, get it started, create a Word document, open it up, give it a name, put it on your desktop of your computer, carve out a time of your day where you're going to write in it, because that's step 2. Step 2 is schedule it. So step 1, what's my intention? Write a book. Step 2, schedule it. What am I going to write? I'm going to write 6 to 6:30 every morning. Boom. Measure it. How many days a week are you going to write from 6 to 6:30? Well, 5 days a week, because I get up that early 5 days a week before I was going to school as a high school athletic director. So 5 days a week, I got up and I wrote 6 to 6:30 on my computer. And some days I found a flow and I would write until 7:30 and I would miss my workout because I was so into it. Other days I'd write for 10 minutes and go, I got nothing today. And I'd start my workout earlier. But I would always sit at the computer at 6 o'clock. And that's when I wrote my first book. Set the intention, schedule it, measure it 5 days a week. And then the last step of the 4-step goal formula is to reflect and refocus. So as you are going through this journey of trying to overcome, ask yourself every day, at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow or when you're brushing your teeth, if that's a trigger that most people do every night, what do I need to start? What do I need to stop? What do I need to continue? Based off of my behavior today, what must I start doing better tomorrow? And be small, simple. What must I stop tomorrow to improve my behavior from today? And you know what? What did I do well today that I want to continue? And when you do that, start, stop, continue as a part of your reflection process, it gives you a game plan for the next day. And when you have a game plan and you know what that next step is to start, to stop, or to continue, that can give you momentum for the next day and give you hope for the next day, because you now know what it looks like for you to just be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today. And if you can be a little better tomorrow than you were today and a little better today than you were yesterday, that's called progress. And you do that for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you will get where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's that to bring that full circle. So I've done that exercise on my calculator as you showed me, the compound effect. And what I find I find two things interesting about that truism. First is you get about halfway through the month and it's only $600.
Yeah.
You get to day 20 and it's only about $6,000. And that's where I feel like people start to say, fuck, I should have taken the $3 million. I'm disappointed. I might as well give the pennies back, right? I only got 6,000 because I'm such an idiot for not taking the $3 million. But if you just keep with it, a penny a day compounding, if you just take the 6,000 and say, I got from here to there, and I know it's not the $3 million yet, but it's still better than I started, the gift always comes. And it's I think so many people give up on their commitment and give up on that discipline of continuing to just compound every day and to just write another 30 minutes. It's like, I still don't have a book done in 15 days. I thought I'd have a book done if I wrote 30. No, you have to keep writing 30 minutes until day 31 or whatever that day of completion is. But I think the importance of the second part of motivation starts from movement, but it's that commitment and recommitting every day that keeps you going until you can affect the change you wanted.
And consistency is the hardest thing for human beings. So that's where, to me, why making your bed is so important, and why a guy like Corbin Burns, who, when you talk about overcoming, in 2019 as a pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, he's a starter. He's got, in 40 innings, he has a 10 ERA. He gets sent to the minor leagues, and that 10 ERA is not only the worst that season, it's one of the worst in the history of baseball.
And that could be an end for some. I mean, that could be a mental end for some people.
End.
But it isn't, is it?
Well, rock bottom is a great place to build. It's called a foundation. And as he hits rock bottom and gets sent to the minor leagues, starts going to work on his process, starts going to work on his habits, starts going to work on the consistency. And in 2021, he sets 2 major league records as an all-star and is as a favorite to win the Cy Young here in next month. So how is it that he uses that adversity to his advantage and looks at that setback as an opportunity and a setup for a comeback? It's because he got strategy. It's because he went asking better questions. What happened? As I look back in the rearview mirror, as I locate the black box, what happened to my performance? Why did I underperform? Okay, what did I learn from this? What do I do differently to course correct to get to where I want to go? But then once you get there, complacency kills. If you think you got it figured out, you start slipping it out a slippery slope fast. And most people, when they think they got it figured out, always go, well, what'd you figure out? Show me what you figured out. They're like, oh, it's up here. And guess what? It's going to disappear that fast. That's where you have to write down your process, write down your morning routine, write down your habits. And it's why we both use the app Habit Share to give you an opportunity to keep track of your habits and share your habits with other people for accountability. Because the 3 aspects, I think, of elite performance that people use to help overcome, and if you're going to overcome, you're going to need these 3 things. Guaranteed. Never put it in this context until right now, but it's guaranteed that you need these. Number 1, you need clarity. Clarity on what do I need to start, stop, and continue. Number 2, accountability. Who am I letting down if I don't do this? And who's going to check in with me to make sure I'm doing it and provide, number 3, support. If you have clarity, if you have accountability, and you have support, you can overcome anything. But to do it on yourself, to think you can do it alone, is just going to make the task that much harder. Because we're a lot easier to go get down on ourselves than we are to let down other people. And if you ask yourself, okay, here's my commitment that I'm making. Here's who I'm accountable to. And who do I let down if I don't make this the right decision? Who do I let down if I fail? You can ask yourself also, who do I make proud if I succeed? But I think a lot of times in my experience, people get more juice and more energy from who do I not want to let down?
Yeah, I mean, well, Heather, I think this is, episode 39 or 40 and 40 people that have everybody that's overcome anything in their lives or have experienced helping people overcome have all to a T said, you can't, it's just too, it's hard alone, I've told people, sure, might you overcome alone? You might.
And you might get dropped off from the helicopter on the top of the mountain, but guess what? It ain't as fulfilling as if you take people with you.
Absolutely. And is it going to take a long time? It might, but it's easier. I mean, I remember several times on this journey where I've been up against either some, reaching for a client that I thought I wanted to pitch to and feeling a lot of the bumps in the road that I was going to face. And I'd send you an email, not because you were going to tell me what to do, but you would encourage me. I think all 3 of your responses to the obstacles I was facing were good, and good, which was awesome. But it was true. It was like, these aren't obstacles. These are just facts. What are you going to do about them? And you should still pursue this, because my mind says, don't do it. Someone else should do it. You're not right for it. You get this kind of, like I said, that your brain keeps score of doubts, worries, fears, and insecurities. And so when you get just a little encouragement, one person who believes in you, it's like getting an extra rocket booster. And who wouldn't want an extra rocket booster if they got to fly to the moon?
Well, those obstacles are there not to keep you from where you want to go, right? The obstacles are there to see how fucking bad you want it.
Yeah, well said.
Right? And when those obstacles show up, you can say, woe is me, here we go again, or you can say, now I go. Now let me see what I got. Now all this training, this preparation that I have in my life is preparing me for this moment. Let's go find out. And if you always are doing everything and you have to be 100% assured that you're going to get the result before you start, that's why it's the start that stops most people. And you and I, as we were preparing to go for a run this morning out here, which was awesome, you talked about going into your first half marathon and going, shit, I don't know if I'm going to finish this thing, but I'm going to find out. And it's the same thing. When you start writing your book, you don't know if you're going to finish. I'm going to find out. My first Ironman, I don't know if I'm going to finish. I'm going to find out. 100-mile run. I don't think I'm going to finish, but I'm going to find out. And if you just keep asking yourself, I want to find out what I'm capable of, you'll realize that you're capable of anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's fucking awesome because I'm reminded William Shakespeare said our doubts are traitors and they keep us from the joy we could face they prevent us from enjoying the success we would have if we had only dared to try. He's basically saying these doubts are traitors. They block you. You get self-doubt, and if you don't see that everything good is on the other side of that discomfort and pursue it. And I love that. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
I was listening to a study by Carol DeWick. I think I was telling you about where they're doing research on the word yet, because you may not have it today, but you just don't have it yet. But if you keep behavior, and I think we'll wrap up with the importance of that, which is, when you're overcoming, it's the behaviors, the consistency of behaviors that precede results. You use the example of the Major League Baseball player who was sent down to the minors. There's a lesson there, but if you either quit baseball or you don't change your behaviors, you'll stay in the minor leagues. So you got to identify. I think that interview we both talk about with Kobe Bryant, where he talks about losing, he says it's exciting. And I think Lewis Howes is kind of questioning, what do you mean? Why is losing exciting? He goes, because there's lessons there, man. It doesn't mean I'm not an all-star, incredible, best-in-the-class basketball player. It just means I got some shit I got to learn if I want to get better. And if I learn from those things and change my behavior, then I'm going to achieve a different result. But if same behavior, I won't learn anything, same result.
It's amazing. I've shown that clip so many times since you sent it to me. And I always ask the audience beforehand, what does losing feel like to you guys? Sucks. Hate it. Negative. Worst feeling in the world. I go, Be interesting. You guys do realize attitude is a decision, right? Be interesting if you change your mindset. Let's take a look at one of the greatest. Boom. Kobe, what does losing feel like? Oh, it's exciting. And I pause. I go, what's losing feel like? It's exciting. What's losing feel like? It's exciting. Play. And he goes, well, it's exciting because there's things there that you can learn. And he goes, it sucks, but you ask yourself, what could I do well in that game? What do I want to do better? How am I going to continue to do the things I did well? And how am I going to do the things I want to do better? So I love that he says it's exciting and it sucks.
I agree.
It's neutral.
Yeah.
And what I've learned from being in locker rooms with UFC fighters, what I've learned from working with some Navy SEALs and people who have been over in combat overseas, is that fear and confidence are not mutually exclusive. They live together, man. They ride in the same partner, right? They're passengers in the journey. So you can be afraid because you know what the outcome can be. Losing a fight, you're in combat, the outcome can be your life. The outcome can be I don't finish the race. But you're also confident because you know you're prepared. You're also confident because you know that you've been there before. You've been in the combat before. You've been in the cage before. You know you're probably the most prepared you've ever been. So when you take those two things, fear and confidence, and you put them together, what you get is elite performance. And I think when you're trying to overcome something, whatever it is for you, there's going to be an element of fear. It ain't ever going away. Learn to use that fear as fuel. And also learn to have the confidence that confidence is a choice and you too can overcome. Do remember that when you were born, you were probably one of 20,000 sperm and you're the one that made it, man.
Yeah. Wow. Great perception. Great perspective, because you're so right about that. And I think it's an incredible place for us to help people, is the realization that, where you're at is a moment of time. And if the acronym for fear I like is face everything and rise. And fear is just, for me, as I've experienced lots of fear in my life, overcoming lots of different challenges, I think as part of our training together, it just means I'm going to do something important. It just means I'm going to do something I give a shit about, and it's right to be afraid, that pressure is a privilege, I think Trevor used to say, but if I try to avoid or stuff the fear and make it go away, then I'm going to choose I can choose some unhealthy ways. But fear is just a natural emotion that says, hey man, you're about to do something you care about. Let's see how good you are.
And when you get to the point in your life where you've done that enough, you start looking for the fear. You start going, what's the uncomfortable thing that I want to go do today? What's the uncomfortable thing that I want to do this year? And Jesse Itzler, who's the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, has a great book called Living with a SEAL, where he had David Goggins,
right.
a Navy SEAL, live with him for a month. Hilarious book. If anybody's into the audiobooks, it's one of the best I've ever listened to. And Jesse Itzler talks about on his calendar every year, he schedules 5 events. And 5 events that are things he's going to do that are like memories. And he calls it the Big Ass Calendar Club, right? And schedule your work around your life, not your life around your work. And for the longest time, I still fall in that trap today, because it's not work. I haven't worked a day since I walked away from being a high school athletic director. I mean, it's the hardest thing I do is get on planes. Like, I got it really good. You know, the work now has turned into fun. And I think when you match your vocation with what you would want to do on vacation, that's called living. And, you know, where I was going with that was, if you schedule those 5 events and they're on your calendar, it keeps you honest with the preparation and the training. So like, if you're listening to this and you've never done a marathon, maybe go schedule one, or schedule a half, or schedule a 5K, or schedule whatever the next thing is for you that's just outside of your comfort zone. And if it's just outside of your comfort zone, it's going to keep you honest and push you to do what it takes to get there. If it's so far out of your comfort zone, sometimes it can look like the mountain and go, I don't think I can get there. Well, you can get there. Maybe it's just the wrong mountain. Let's pick a smaller one. Like, your first mountain you summit ain't going to be Mount Everest.
That's right.
You know,
I call them Goldilocks Objectives.
Yes.
You know, not too hot, not too cold, but a little outside your comfort zone, so that it's a challenge and it makes your stomach go a little bit. It's like playing tennis against a 4-year-old. You'll roll over him. You play tennis against Roger Federer, you're going to get your ass kicked and probably want to quit. Play somebody who's a couple of stages better than you to help you get better.
Yeah, kind of like we're going to do on the golf course today, Charlie.
That's right.
We're going to find out where it's at. I hope you brought your wallet today.
Absolutely, I did. And I got to tell you, if you're listening to this, you're very lucky, because Brian is become a very dear friend, an incredible mentor and teacher. I'm so grateful that you've come into my life. And you have a lot. You provide a lot of access to people to your work. And the daily podcast, your website with free courses for coaches and athletes. Things. I mean, you've developed so many skills that you're so willing to share with us. Can you tell people, and we'll put it all in the notes, how people can find you and how they can start to improve their mental performance by doing some small, simple things? Yeah,
the first place to start, and it's why I created it, is with my Mental Performance Daily podcast. It's 3 minutes a day, roughly Monday through Friday, around a topic. This week, I'm doing, not the week that this comes out, but the week we're recording this, I'm on week 2 of sharing 10 principles from my mentor, Dr. Ken Ravizza. It's about episodes 80 to 90. So if you're picking this up wherever, whenever, go back and listen to the episodes 80 through 90. There's a reason why I have Ken Ravizza's face tattooed on my heart, and I would love for you to listen to those 10. Saturday, I tell a story, call them Saturday Stories, and Sunday, I do a meditation that brings you back through the week's lessons. And that's the place, I think, for people to start. The other one would be obviously on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all my social media at Brian Cain Peak, BrianCainPeak. And if you direct message me on there, I do check those myself, and I'll do my best to get back with you. If you go to my website, briancain.com, I have a free course for coaches and a free course for athletes. They're 3-day mini courses. And I have a 30-day athletes course, which is essentially a 30-day mental performance course. It's not just for athletes. It's for anybody who's looking to level up their game.
Done it.
And then the coach's certification, if you're interested in getting into mental performance coaching. And if you're a parent, you're a mental performance coach for your kids, right? So if you're a human being, I think you're a mental performance coach for yourself.
Yeah, we would be remiss if we didn't at least allow you to tell her, what are the 10 pillars of mental performance? What are the 10 pillars you've created? And I really encourage people to access all of this content, because some of those pillars we dove in today, process over outcome. Some of those pillars you live every day, whether you know it or not, kind of like the law of gravity. So tell us, what are the 10 pillars?
Yeah, for sure. And the 10 pillars are really 10 skills, right? So if you think about development, whether it be as an athlete, as a real estate agent, as a podcaster, we do drills to develop skills to create a skill set. So I look at mental performance or mental toughness as a skill set. A skill set's a collection of skills. If you're a lawyer, you have a skill set. If you're a surgeon, you have a skill set. If you're a mechanic, you have a skill set. If you're a painter, you have a skill set. All of us have a unique skill set. And any skill set is available to you through a thing called training, right? So we do drills to develop skills that make a skill set. And the 10 skills that we want to train that make the mental toughness or the mental performance mastery skill set are: 1, elite mindset; 2, motivation and commitment; 3, focus and awareness; 4, self-control and discipline; 5, process over outcome; 6,
meditation and mental imagery. 7, routines and habits of excellence. 8, time management. 9, leadership. And 10, creating the right culture. And we all have those skills anywhere on a level of 1 to 10, 1 not developed, 10 extremely developed. And we always want to be moving towards the direction of being a 10 on all of those 10 skills to give us that mental performance mastery skill set. And where this comes from is I've had the privilege to be around high performers.
That's right.
And the high performance, success leaves clues. So whether it's a Corbin Burns, a George St. Pierre, a Rich Franklin, a Kyler Murray, a Ken Ravizza, a Tim Corbin, a Jack Bowerly, swimming diving coach at Georgia, who's won multiple national championships, right? Whoever it is. What are the things that they all do? And we identify what they all do. Success leaves clues. They all rock what I call the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery. Some areas better than others based off of the context in which they perform. But if you want to close the gap from where you are to where you want to be, start with working on the 6 inches between the ears that control the 6 feet below it. And that's the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery.
Wow, man. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. We got a couple of days of grinding to do, and we're going to get to it. Thanks, Brian.
Fuck Charlie. Grind stands for get ready. It's a new day, man. We might as well call it grim. Get ready. It's a new minute. Let's roll.
I love you, dude. Thanks so much.